This week in the astrology, we have never been so back because number one, Mercury is going to move back into Aries. It is going to conjoin Neptune in Aries, which this is going to be our first planetary conjunction to Neptune now that it's in Aries. So that's going to be kind of a big deal. Number two, or I should say number three, Mars moves back into Leo. This is a really, really big deal because Mars first moved into Leo back in November of 2024. But then in December of 2024, it stationed retrograde, which is no bueno. Mars coming back into Leo is going to give us a lot more confidence, a lot more pride, a lot more courageousness and resiliency to go about whatever we need to go about. As well, Mars is going to make a trine to Neptune and Aries. Then we also have the sun going into Taurus, so Taurus season begins. Venus sextiles Uranus, and by the end of this week, we have our Sun-Mars square. So we got a lot to talk about this week. Let's go ahead and get started talking about it. Welcome back to the Astrology Report, this time for April 14th through April 20th of 2025. My name is Cam White. I'm a professional astrologer, and I tell you exactly what the hell is going on in the stars. And number one, I don't allow you to be a victim about it. And number two, I give you the information that is going to help you get to the next level in life. And rather than whining and complaining about the stars affecting you, here we're not victims here. We take responsibility for our lives, and we look at the astrology and we go, wow, that's kick ass. Thank God this is happening to me because I need this in my life. I need to take action here, and I need to get to this point B. So if you're interested in personal development and using astrology as that tool to get there, I am your guy. Now, before we get into it, this week, we're starting school. We're starting the certification program for Astrology for Diviners. So this is Astrology for Witches, Psychics, Tarot Readers. Class is starting this week. If you're interested in getting a certification with that, this is going to be kind of a jam-packed situation. I have a link to I have a link to more information in the description below, and I'll just let you guys check it out from there. So we start Monday with just the moon in Scorpio. There's no lunar transits, really. The moon is, I think, slowly applying to Venus, but the moon doesn't actually make her aspect to Venus on Monday. So the moon is just hanging out in Scorpio. And like I ended off last week, we just got done with the full moon in Libra with Venus stationing direct. It's like, okay, here's what I want. But oftentimes in life, we get to this point of like, oh, this is what I want. And then you realize what it's going to take to get there. And it's not just as easy as, oh, I want to get here. So it'll just be super easy. Usually you have to become someone to get there. Usually you have to, purge out old ways of doing things, old belief systems, old habits, and you have to really reinvent yourself to get somewhere. And I really kind of look at this now waning moon in Scorpio as this time, again, think about waning, like the moon waning is like starting to get rid of light and diminish light. And it's going through Scorpio where it's like, what do we need to purge? What do we need to get rid of? And this isn't going to be the most fun feeling, but sometimes it's one of those things where when you have to get rid of stuff in your life, like let's say you're moving, or let's say you're on the show Hoarders. A lot of people like to say take a drink every time Cam uses a drug analogy, but the real OGs are taking shots every time Cameron brings up the Hoarders TV show. Real OGs know about that one. So if you're on Hoarders, it doesn't feel that good, but what feels really good is not having a bunch of bullshit in your house, feeling clean, feeling purged. It's one of those things where, all right, we're going to have a little fun today. Nothing feels better than taking a shit, or maybe not taking the shit, but post shit, when you literally get rid of the gunk in your body and it is excreted out, you feel amazing. Now, whether you have diarrhea or you have constipation, the process doesn't feel good. Sometimes it feels good. Now, if you're eating right and everything's correct, it's like, it's all smooth. But if you're not, if you've been built up, then it's not going to feel that good. But then once it's all out of your system, it feels amazing. That's how I think of the moon in Scorpio, as well as going to like when the moon goes into Sagittarius. But Monday is just about this purging. There's not much going on there. It's kind of stagnant in a way. So you're just kind of sitting on the pot for a while. So that brings us to Tuesday. On Tuesday, first, the moon is then going to make its trine to Venus. Then the moon will immediately go opposite Uranus. Then the moon will make a trine to Saturn, trine Mars, trine Mercury. And then later that evening at nighttime, about 9 p.m., is when the moon will enter Sagittarius. So Monday's a little bit boring. Tuesday, though, a lot of lunar transits, a lot of things happening. I would argue all positive. Now, let me just read you the things I wrote down. So the moon trining Venus, going opposite Uranus. It's like acceptance. Like, okay, you like this. Let's put a hard pause on the constipation poop analogy. That was in the past. Now we're talking about something different. We're gonna use a different analogy now. It's like, oh yeah, you like this? You like that shit? So the moon, making that trine to Venus is acceptance of like what your desires are. Venus is in Pisces. She's direct now. She's Morningstar. This is what you want to pursue. But that moon in Scorpio is kind of like, you have to ask yourself, how bad do you want it? And do you want it bad enough to like go through the emotional, regulation and like, you might feel stressed or you might feel insecure, but like, do you want it bad enough to go through those things, to conquer your emotions, to get to the other side of it? That's how I look at this. But what's funny is how the moon trines Venus, where there's something nice that happens, but then the moon goes opposite Uranus. Like, immediately after that, some sort of form of instability gets brought up. Some sort of form of a disruption gets brought up. That's going to be kind of, make you kind of clutch your pearls for a second. You might want to react, but this is kind of part of the test, in my opinion. Like, let's chill out on Tuesday and not overly react, because then the moon, after it goes opposite Uranus, trines Saturn, trines Mars, trines Mercury. Look, I think the moon trines Venus, so it's like, do you want this? And you're like, yeah, I want this. Okay, cool. Bam, moon goes opposite Uranus. Some situation comes up, but you handle it because you're stoic, because you're not reactionary, because you have control of your emotions, because you are an adult and you don't just let astrology, throw you around like a rag doll. You're a badass. And I know I hate that term, like, oh, you're a badass. Like, it's like millennials ruined that fucking term, by the way. You are someone who has control of their emotions, even though your emotions can feel extreme. And the moon is then going to trine Saturn and Mars and Mercury, where this kind of test of being jump scared, like having a jump scare with the moon opposite Uranus, you don't react to it. You don't let it get the best of you. You don't let it defeat you. And as the moon makes that trine to Saturn, Mars, and Mercury, it's like, congratulations, you passed the test. Congratulations, you have control and discipline over your emotions. You have that internal discipline that you've needed. And again, this is what's really funny about a lot of this astrology stuff. This is something that I've talked about during the Mars retrograde, was it wouldn't be happening if we didn't need to go through it, if that makes sense. And I think as the moon has fallen and Saturn has fallen, there's this uncomfortability with our anger, our emotions, and how we go about things. And when the moon makes these trines, it's just kind of like being able to accept things where they are. And even though you may not feel all that good, allowing yourself to not feel good. And there's kind of strength in that, rather than like being reactive to it, just accepting what those emotions are. But then we move on, because then the moon literally goes into Sagittarius that night. And there's this freedom from emotions, freedom from pain, freedom from negativity. As the moon goes into Sagittarius, there's this like, again, we're no longer, it's just like getting off the pot, like getting off the shitter. And you're like, oh gosh, I feel so much better. I feel so much lighter. I didn't realize how bad I felt during that whole time. So then we get to Wednesday. Wednesday is our highlight day. So the first highlights that we get this week are on Wednesday. Mercury goes into Aries, and then Mercury conjoins Neptune in Aries. There is a part of this that's like, okay, let's talk about the personal development, how it's going to affect you. And then let's also talk about some bigger stuff. Number one, Mercury's going back into Aries. Say it with your chest. Say it out loud. Don't be afraid to say what you mean. Mars is still in Cancer at this point. So you might just be like, you might just kind of like tell someone off in a way that was maybe a little bit insensitive, but whatever. They'll get over it. As Mercury goes into Aries, though, our mind is going to become a lot sharper, a lot quicker, a lot more action-oriented, and less confused, less just all over the place. But Mercury does conjoin Neptune. So on one end, let me just bring this up. This is our first conjunction in Neptune and Aries. I really wonder what kind of news comes out on Wednesday that is going to give us some more insight as to what Neptune and Aries is. And again, I can't believe how many people thought when I talked about Neptune and Aries in one of my last weeks, they're like, Cameron, how can you idealize war? Did you guys just get here? Have I ever idealized any war? But Neptune and Aries, and again, like you are not immune to propaganda. And I don't know how much war stuff you see going on right now, but it's getting cooked up. I wonder what messaging comes across with Mercury conjoining Neptune as to like, hey, this is the propaganda. This is what the state wants you to think. This is what, this is, oh my God, this is happening, be scared. Oh my God, this is happening. So we need to go to war. I would be really interested in if there's anything like that that's happening. I still don't necessarily think any sort of wars are going to pop off until Venus leaves shadow. That's just like a thing. October 7th was when Venus left shadow. Russia, Ukraine was when Venus left shadow. So I'm waiting for that, but I wonder about Mercury conjoining Neptune is like just information around it. But let's go back to you. Mercury conjoining Neptune. Look, I'm very interested in Neptune and Aries for the sake of Neptune and Pisces we went a little bit overboard with going into our minds, going into these realms and getting very confused. And again, a lot of the Neptune and Pisces stuff was the oh, we need to be kind, we need to be careful, we need to be sensitive and have these safe spaces, versus a lot of Neptune and Aries is like, or at least a lot of the sign of Aries is like action, being blunt, being forceful, not being afraid. And I think a lot about like honor societies. Like there's no fucking honor in society whatsoever nowadays, especially too when it comes to, and again, like I speak to a lot of women here, and I know that a lot of women like to speak about men's issues, but just like, I don't know, can men speak about women's issues all the time? When it comes to Neptune and Aries, there is I think a glorification and now an idealization or romanticization of the kind of warrior society stuff. Now, there's good and bad sides to that, right? Is going into Iran for Israel's bidding and to take over the oil fields a good thing? No, it's not. But the idea of fighting, the idea of having an inner warrior is so crucial to the spirit, right? Because if you're not a warrior at some point, what are you? Do you not have the courageousness or the willpower to stand up for yourself and to fight for something that you believe in and to go about the things that you want in life? Like, you have to have that warrior spirit. That's how I look at a lot of Neptune and Aries. And as Mercury conjoins Neptune and Aries on Wednesday, I ask you, wherever Aries is at in your chart, what if Mercury's about communication and ideas and our thoughts, and Neptune's about you could even say Neptune's very dream oriented, like dreams and spirituality in a lot of ways, and idealizing things and rose colored glasses. Is like, what ideas, it's like, I really want you to just think of like, what is the fucking craziest action that you could possibly take when it comes to what you should be doing, what you want to be doing? What is the most extreme way you could do something right now? Like, for example, like if I wanted to do again, this is me being a little bit more open, and so people don't freak out with what I'm going to say, but like, I really want to pursue music way, way more. What if I just like quit astrology, right? Walked away from it. And I had to figure out a way to be full-time doing music like right now. When you frame certain situations in the most extreme way, like, okay, like for example, let's say you wanted to start your own business. And you're like, okay, well, if it takes me 6 to 12 months, and if I do this and this, it's like, okay, well, what if you had to start your own business right now? You had to quit your job right now, and you had to make $10,000 right now, right this second, right now. And if you didn't, everyone you loved died. The line of thinking changes what actions you would take, right? Like if you had a year to make $10,000, what would you do? You'd be like, okay, do this, maybe sell some stuff, and maybe work a couple extra hours and just save. Versus like, if you had to make $10,000 by the end of the week, what would you do? There would be a different line of action. There'd be a different line of thinking. And so when I look at Mercury conjoining Neptune and Aries, it's just like, really think, like really visualize and come up with plans on what to do. Now, this is important too, because I think Mercury conjoining Neptune and Aries is the prelude to Mars going into Leo, which I'm going to talk about that in a second. But if Mercury's conjoining Neptune and Aries, don't play fucking small. It's just pretty much what I'm saying. Like, what is the action that you want to take? What is the plan? Make up a plan. Make up some sort of a plan, make up some sort of an idea, take a lot of pride in these actions, and really don't think of like, oh, well, if I just kind of, go from point A to point B. Like, I want you to really visualize something for your life and really allow what's in your heart, the thing that you desire the most, to come alive. And I feel like so many of you are actually afraid of what you want. Like, you have these deep carnal desires of the things that you want, and you shove it down, and you settle for it's like you want the best steak in the world, and you settle for like a fucking McDonald's burger patty, and it's just like, how much longer do you do that? And is life worth living? Truly, is life worth living if you're only going after something that you are genuinely settling for? Now, there's a difference between having sacrifice in life, right? Because that's just how, life is complicated. But what is if you are going to take action, if you are making your way towards something, what is it at its most truest core? Not, oh, I really want this, but let me play a little bit small because, I don't think I can get there because, my whole life, my parents never let me get to the things that I wanted to get, or whatever it is. You have to play big. And in my opinion, a lot of playing big is just getting to your heart and understanding what that is. And that brings us to Thursday, because on Thursday, the moon's going to go opposite Jupiter. So the moon is in Sagittarius. It's going to go opposite Jupiter and square Venus. Interesting that the moon is going to be in between benefics on Thursday, but then Mars goes into Leo. Okay. I really want you to think about how you felt in September and October of 2024 versus November of 2024. Mars being in Cancer is this insecure and sort of protective and sort of having to defend, versus Mars in Leo is this courageousness, this resiliency, this, egotistical and bombastic attitude about things. And there's a lot of it that is really good, right? You could look, Mars is fights and conflicts, it's inflammation, it's like injury. There's bad parts to it. But I also look at Jupiter's been fallen. We just had a Venus retrograde in her detriment, a Mercury retrograde in its detriment, Mars retrograde in its sign of fall. I think we could use any sort of thing that's either a planet in its own dignity or a planet just not in a fucking sign that it hates. But I look at Mars in Leo. Mars goes into Leo. Mars is about our actions and our drive and our energy, and it's in the sign of the sun, being witnessed. Think about a performer. If you've ever done a performance before, when you rehearse this performance by yourself, you're engaged in a thought process that is critical to your actions, that is critical to how you do things, and you allow yourself to pause and you allow yourself to think of what's next, and you allow yourself to think of what everyone's going to think, versus when you are performing. When you are in front of people on a stage and you are being seen, you are channeling a spirit. You are channeling God, essentially, in a lot of ways, because you are present in that moment. And there's this sense of pride and confidence that comes about you when the sun is lighting up your actions, right? Now, if you're insecure, if you're afraid, if you didn't rehearse, then the bad things are going to be lit up. But I think back to November and December, because because we're not talking about just Mars going into Leo. We're talking about a Mars retrograde cycle. Mars was in Leo in November, and it was like, thank God, we have this pride, we have this action, we have ready to go again. And then in December, it got taken away. Mars retrograde in Leo, and I said this for so long. Mars retrograde in Leo is like having your tail tucked between your legs, and it's like everyone I talk to, it's just like it was rough out there. You had your tail tucked between your legs. You lost that confidence. Again, this is something I brought up when Mars was retrograde in Leo. Was like I kept hearing the term licking your wounds more than I've ever heard that term in my life. I heard that from 15 different people from different situations. Mars went back into Cancer. We did the protection thing, and now we're ready to come out jamming again. Now we're ready to push forward. Now we're ready to be back. We've never been so back as to this moment. And it comes down to the Mercury and Aries thing. Mercury's going to go into Aries. Our mind is sharp again. We're ready for battle. We're ready for action. Mercury conjoins Neptune. Romanticize it. Idealize it. Mars goes into Leo the next day on Thursday. Are you that motherfucker or are you not that motherfucker? And I hope that you are, because by the way, everyone is that motherfucker. They just don't allow themselves to actually get there. They're afraid of themselves. They stay in fear, which in my opinion, again, fear is Satan. Fear is not allowing God into your life. Isn't that a funny way to think about it? What are you so afraid of? Are you afraid of actually being honest and truthful? And are you, what are you afraid of? So we get to Thursday, Mars goes back into Leo. This sense of confidence and pride and swagger really comes back. And I want you to anticipate this as you're watching this on Sunday or Monday. Anticipate this. It's going to feel better here. There's going to be some fights that you have to pretty much fight, but you're going to have the confidence to do them. Thursday, the moon is going to be in Sagittarius. It's going to go opposite Jupiter square Venus. Look, the moon in Sag going opposite Jupiter is just going to be more excitement, and the moon is going to then square Venus, where it's you're overwhelmed with the moon going opposite Jupiter, a little bit over caffeinated, and then the moon squares Venus, where it's the way that you're going to go about things is not necessarily classy, but that's not what we're here for. It's not supposed to be classy right now. That brings us to Friday. The moon in Sagittarius is going to make a square to Saturn, and then the moon is going to go into Capricorn and square Neptune and Mercury. Now, Friday's a little bit of a different story. We will still continue the energy of having Mars and Leo, but the moon squaring Saturn, moon in Sagittarius squaring Saturn Pisces is just kind of going nowhere fast, if that makes sense. The moon in Sag is trying to be excited and trying to move forward, but squaring Saturn Pisces, wherever you go, there you are. You might have all these fun, idealistic feelings about things, but you have to unlock it on the inside. And I think there's this kind of internal resistance to things that we're still dealing with. But then the moon goes into Capricorn. It's time to get serious, a little bit more stoic time. And it's going to square Neptune and Mercury. I don't mind the moon in Capricorn squaring Neptune and Aries, to be honest with you, or really Mercury and Aries. I would argue the moon going into Capricorn and squaring Neptune is very, I don't actually know how I'd think about that and the reason I don't know how I would think about that is, well, if the moon in Capricorn the moon's about our emotions, the moon's squaring Neptune. So our emotions are not in alignment or disrupted by what we're confused by or what illusions that we have, right? But this is the moon in Capricorn. It's a cardinal sign, so it's about initiating, but it's cardinal. So it's or I mean, but it's Capricorn. So there's a part of it that's like, well, I need to be stoic. I need to be shut off from my emotions. But then Neptune's in Aries. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do then? So I feel like, I don't know how I'd explain that, but I don't necessarily think it's that bad. But then the moon will make a square to Mercury in Aries where it's like, I look at that as your ability to say how you feel is going to be, because you're going to be cut off from your emotions. I think there's going to be this dryness and this kind of harshness to your tone that is, just a little blunt I think on Friday. And then we get to Saturday, and on Saturday we have Mars making its trine to Neptune, and then we have the sun going into Taurus. So again, 2 highlights for the day while the moon is still in Capricorn. Mars trining Neptune. In this world, in this age that we're in, you have 2 options, and that is to either brainwash yourself or be brainwashed. And I think a lot of people are brainwashed in areas of their life that they don't even understand that they are. Like, the last time you bought something, why did you buy it? Did you as a human being with your own values and interests and morals and philosophy buy that because that is genuinely what you wanted, or were you sold on that idea? Right? Now, I think sales is a good thing, because a lot of sales is like, well, maybe you did want it, but it does enhance your life, but it just took you a second to like connect those dots, because we have a lot of resistance to things that are new. We have a lot of resistance to change, right? But I'm saying this because with Mars going into Leo and trining Neptune, we have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to romanticize and idealize and glorify our actions. We have an opportunity to be in that meditative state. And how do you want that to be? When it comes to that flow state that you're going to be in, what kind of flow state do you want to be in? What area of your life do you want to have flow state? Where do you want to feel like, I think about Mars and Leo just trining Neptune and Aries is like, I made this, I said this somewhere. I think it was on the game plan. I think it was on the April game plan. If you remember, you already know. I might have said this here, but ask any guy. Any guy has something that they romanticize about their past, whether like I could have, went to, the NFL if I tried hard enough, or something like that. I mean, in girls too, there's some sort of action that you have taken that you look back and you're like, man, that was so fucking cool that I did that. I feel like that's what Saturday's vibe is. So I want to ask you, what is the coolest? And again, here's it's something I've been thinking a lot about is I've been working on my own life philosophy. Oh, by the way, it's so funny. Someone on my Neptune and Aries video was like, can you stop sharing stories about yourself and fucking just tell us what we fucking deserve to hear? Because this is, and I was just like, it's so funny when people are so fucking like, this is free fucking content. Go, like, shut the fuck up. I'll talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. But I think it's so funny when someone's like, don't share your own personal stories of astrology. Like, how else are you fucking learning this? But in my own, I've been thinking about like, what are philosophies that I want to live by? And this is going to sound funny to a lot of you, but I'm like all fire and air in my chart. And like, I'm a Leo sun, Libra moon, Sag rising. And I think about core things that I want to build my life around. And one of them, like when I really concentrate it down, is like, I want to be cool. And that sounds silly. It really does sound silly, but think about it. What if every part of your every aspect of your life was fucking cool? Like the way, like your house, like your family, your job, your interests, your hobbies, like everything you did was just fucking cool. There's an essence and an energy to that. And it's something I think a lot about, like that's kind of like where I just want to be, is like, I just want to be fucking cool. Right? Like what a fun life to live when everything is just fucking sick. And I think about Mars in Leo trining Neptune is like, what is the coolest fucking thing you can do? What is, again, I think about, cause Trump has Mars in Leo, right? And I think a lot about like how he has gone about attacking other politicians. Like I'm thinking 2015 Trump, when he was like debating Hillary Clinton, just some of the shit he said was just very like, what? Did he just fucking say that? Did he just say like, you're not gonna, something about whatever he said to Hillary Clinton in that debate, in that speech? I can't remember, but it was just so like shock and awe, if that makes sense. At that time, we're in a very different, that was 10 years ago. But like, what is the shock and awe? What is the performance that you could put on? And not performance for others' validation, but when confidence, again, this is like an Alex Hormozi quote, like confidence is like just a stack of examples or what does he say? It's like a stack of undeniable wins that like that you are who you claim to be. And so I think about Mars and Leo, it's like, who are you? What have you done? And how can you radiate that essence of who you are and that confidence? And how can you do that in an action, right? Like, because only so many people could take so many actions, right? There's people like one of you that's watching this can do something that is so fucking sick that I couldn't even dream of doing, but only you could do it. Like, there's a lot of like crazy, weird artists out there. Like, I think a lot about like, I don't know, like I see, like sometimes I've seen people on like Instagram, like make rugs. And just to me, I'm like, I don't know, that's fucking cool how like the design of them are. And I don't know, that's just, there's things that are like that are cool to me. And so I think about Mars and Leo, trining Neptune and Aries is, what is the coolest fucking thing that you can do? What is a way that you can show off? And again, I'm a big believer in showing off. I like when I have clients, they're always just kind of like, I ask like what their dreams are, what they want to do. And they're like, oh yeah. Or they're like, I don't want to be egotistical. I'm like, you're talking to a fucking Leo. This is a safe space. This is a safe space for you being like, I'm fucking better than everyone, or I have that, because that's also like, there's so much, and then people are like, well, that's your fucking ego. So many of you like spiritual people, and you're fucking like, it's like every single person holding on to the word narcissist. Holy shit, stop with the word narcissist. What pop psychology and access to therapy has done for the Western world is so detrimental. Like, stop calling everyone narcissist. Stop worrying about ego, okay? Because some of your guys' ego is not it's not, oh, look, I'm better than everybody. It's being like, I'm not going to do that. Because that's weird. And there's more shit to that. But like actually like having a playful and childlike energy about the thing that you're passionate about, that's not ego. That's passion. That's your soul. But they want to kill that from you. They want to call that ego. So you're like, no, be dead. Don't have interest. Don't have a personality. Be like everyone else. So that's Mars trining Neptune. And then the sun goes into Taurus, right? Taurus season, everything's pretty, everything gets stabilized. And well, that brings us to Sunday. I'm trying not to lose it right now because I live in the desert. I live in Las Vegas. And there's a air blower, a leaf blower outside. What leaves are they blowing around? There's only fucking rocks and dirt around here. There doesn't need to be people who hire these leaf blowers, by the way. If there's one thing that needs to be, like, I don't believe in electric cars, but can we start with electric leaf blowers? This is insane to me, how loud these fucking things are. And it's like right outside my fucking window. Anyway, so we get to Sunday. Here's what's cool about Sunday. The moon is in Capricorn. It's going to sextile Venus. It's going to trine Uranus. It's then going to sextile Saturn. We have our highlight for the day, which is Venus sextiling Uranus. And then the moon will go into Aquarius. It will sextile Neptune. It will go opposite Mars. And then we have our last highlight of the day, which is the sun squaring Mars. So number one, moon sextiling Venus, trine Uranus, sextile Saturn, while Venus sextiles Uranus. This is like very similar to what I said, I think like 2 weeks ago, of like everything just starts working out. There's like all of these things that kind of click when it comes to like work, material wealth, feeling good, pleasures, everything in the earth and the water signs are just kind of working out for us. Because by the way, Mars is no longer in a water sign. It's just Venus in a water sign, Saturn in a water sign. It's a much more better feeling. Venus sextiling Uranus, it's like there's a lot about getting it done. There's sporadic, random fun. But then as the moon goes into Aquarius, we have this like disconnect. And it's going to sextile Neptune, which is also really interesting because this is like, who's your, like, you just got spawned into the game. Who's on your team, who's not on your team, kind of the thing. But then the moon goes opposite Mars. I think the moon in Aquarius going opposite Mars is going to be really interesting in terms of how we look at who are the people that we connect the most with, and who is the common enemy. You know what I mean? Like so much of Leo and Aquarius is like, I think about this axis all the fucking time of like, again, the best way to bring people together is to identify a common enemy, and which is a very singular Leo thing versus a group dynamic Aquarius thing. And so when I think about Mars now in Leo, where the problem is the singularity, the problem is the single person, the problem is the identifier and not necessarily the group dynamic. The group dynamic, Pluto's there. So again, please be careful about the group dynamics that you associate with, because they're corrupted, as we've also learned by all the NGOs. But as the moon goes into Aquarius and goes opposite Mars, there's this frustration, and there's this, the way I look at it is it's almost kind of like, have you ever seen someone where you're like, stop having that opinion. Like, this is the way to think of, like, we all have tendencies to lean towards a group thought with things, whether we like it or not. And we have this resistance to people stepping away from that, right? Stepping away from the tribal part of things. And I just feel like that is really heightened on Sunday. But the sun also makes it square to Mars. So this is our closing aspect to the sun after the Mars retrograde. And this is that point in the hero's journey cycle of like, this is kind of like after The Incredibles. I feel like the Incredibles is such a great, like such an easy example of the hero's journey. I think this is the part where Syndrome kidnaps the baby and they're like, oh no, and then he pretty much just like hucks a car up there and grabs the baby. Like there's a one last problem, one last challenge, one last fight. At this point, you should know that you are that motherfucker that can solve the problem. If at this point you're uncertain about that, it's like a bear. It's like a wild animal. It can smell the fear on you. So stop being afraid. Stop being a pussy. Because that fear, the devil, again, I love thinking about fear in that way has allowed me to stop being afraid of a lot of things. Because it's not working for anybody. It's me not trusting. Does that make sense? So stop being afraid. There's going to be a critical moment of like, oh no, the sun squaring Mars, another challenge, another issue. But at this point, you'll have the resiliency to go about it. Does that make sense? So I'm going to leave you guys off with that. Next week, we still have a lot of shit next week. Saturn conjoins the North Node. Sun squares Pluto. Venus conjoins the North Node. Venus conjoins Saturn. Mars goes opposite Pluto, which is kind of the big one in my opinion. And then we got the new moon in Taurus. But this week, guys, we've never been so fucking back. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, liking, sharing, subscribing, and I'll be seeing you next week.